So lesson 4 is all about university results, money, and what comes next. Results day can feel enormous, and depending on when you're watching this, you might have just received your GCSE results yesterday, your A Level results last week, or you might be preparing to start university, or you might already be there wondering what's coming next. At every one of those stages, there is pressure to make another decision. What subjects are you taking? What are you going to do for A Level? What university are you going to go to? What degree are you doing? What career do you want to have? And somehow we're asking people who are maybe 16, 17, and 18 years old to make decisions that feel as though they're going to determine the rest of their lives. They absolutely do not. But some decisions can make the next stage considerably easier or considerably harder. A bit of research now can save you a lot of stress later on. So lesson 4 is for students. We're going to start with GCSE results and choosing what comes next, then university clearing, whether university is even the right route for you, living at home versus moving away, studying abroad, part-time jobs, graduate schemes, and career planning. And then we're going to get into an area where I made some fairly spectacular mistakes myself, which was in money. Because I went to university in September 2008, pretty much right at the time the financial world was falling apart. The Lehman Brothers collapsed, banks were in serious trouble, and government bailouts were happening all over the place. And somehow, in amongst all of that, an 18-year-old version of me was wandering about, fresh as fair, opening 6 student bank accounts. Within those 6 accounts to get 6 overdrafts and 6 credit cards. That was access to money that I absolutely did not understand and how to use and what the effect would have on me in the future. Thankfully, for you guys, banking has changed considerably since then, but the decisions have not disappeared. So there is overdrafts, there is credit cards, Klarna buy now, pay later schemes, finance options, they're all sitting there waiting for you. So whether you're 16 and choosing your next subjects or 21 and about to graduate, I want this lesson to be about making those decisions with a little more information than I had. And because GCSE results are out now, that feels like the right place to start. If you've just received your results, firstly, congratulations. And I mean that regardless of whether every number on the page was what you wanted. If you've done brilliantly, enjoy it. If you've missed your target grade, speak to someone at school or college and find out what options are for you now. One set of results does not determine the rest of your life. Once everything settles down though, there are decisions to make. Is it A levels, BTECs, T levels, apprenticeships, or perhaps another route completely? This is where I would encourage you to do something that I probably didn't do enough of when I was your age, and that's working backwards. You don't need to know exactly what you want to do at 16, but if there are careers or university courses you're already interested in, go and look at them now. Let's say you're vaguely thinking about something like medicine, engineering, economics, psychology, computer science, teaching, or something entirely. Go onto the university websites, pick a range of them, not just one dream university, look at their entry requirements. What A levels do they require? What grades? Are particular subjects essential? Or are some only preferred? Are there GCSE requirements for English and maths? Are there entrance tests? Then compare several universities. You might discover the subject you thought you absolutely had to take is not required at all. Or you might discover that something you were considering dropping is essential for the course that you're interested in. Finding that out now at 16 is considerably better than finding it out when you're completing a university application at 18. There's another side to this too. Do not make your academic life unnecessarily difficult because you think choosing the hardest possible combination of subjects automatically makes your application look better. If university requires a particular subject, clearly you need to consider that. But beyond that, think about what you're good at and what you enjoy and where you're realistically going to achieve the grades that you need. If a course requires AAB, getting AAB matters. There's no prize for making those grades unnecessarily difficult to achieve. So speak to your teachers, your careers advisor, your head of sixth form, the people at the colleges and universities, because they're important, and speak to people already working in the careers you're considering. You're not committing yourself to a career at 16. You're gathering enough information to avoid accidentally closing a door you might want to walk through later on. Now let's move forward a couple of years, your A-level results. Maybe everything has gone exactly as planned. You open your results, checked UCAS, and your university place is confirmed. That is amazing. Well done to you. Also, on the flip side, maybe it didn't. Maybe you missed a grade. Maybe your firm choice did not accept you. And maybe you changed your mind on the course you wanted to do. But before you panic and accept the first university place you can find through clearing, give yourself a little bit of time. Because tens of thousands of students find university places through clearing every single year, and it's not a failure pile. But there is a really important question to ask yourself. Do not ask which university is going to take me. Instead, ask yourself, would I actually choose this university in the course if I wasn't panicking right now? Look at the course, look at the actual modules, look at the city you're going to be living in for 3 or 4 years, look at the accommodation that's on offer, the cost, what do graduates from that course go on to do? Don't agree to spend tens of thousands because you're frightened that everyone else is moving ahead of you. You're making a major educational and financial decision, so please treat it like one. And there's another option that does not get spoken about enough, in my opinion, and that's you don't have to go this year. Taking a year out is not falling behind. In fact, if you use it properly, you might actually get ahead Let's say you're thinking about becoming a teacher. So rather than spending a year doing something that's completely unrelated and waiting for university, see if you can become a teaching assistant. Think about what that actually gives you before you even started your degree. You begin to understand how a school actually operates. You'll see classroom routines. You learn about behaviour systems. You see safeguarding in practice. You understand how a teacher plans, communicates and manages groups of kids. You start seeing what good classroom practice might actually look like from the inside. Then when you eventually go to university and get into that teacher training, you're not walking into a school environment completely cold. And the same principle applies to other careers. If you're thinking about healthcare, can you get relevant experience? If you're interested in business, could you work in an office or a small company? If you're considering hospitality, engineering, sport, finance, or anything else, is there a way to spend that year getting closer to that industry? A year does not have to be about waiting. It can be about preparing. And this brings me on to something that might sound strange coming from somebody with multiple degrees and a career in education. But if I could go back to that 18-year-old self, I genuinely think I would have learned a trade instead of going to university. And I really do mean that. And that's not because I regret university at all. I don't. I'm incredibly privileged to have had the education and the experiences that I've had. And my qualifications have helped me build the career that I've got today and take me places I would never have dreamed of going otherwise. But at 18, I don't think I ever properly asked myself why I was going. It just felt like the next thing that you did, school, university, job, and that was the route that everyone took. But university is not the only route. An apprenticeship's another, a trade is another, employment's another, degree apprenticeships are another. So rather than starting university, the question, which university should I go to? Start with what am I trying to achieve and what's the best route for me to get there? If I could go back and speak to that 18-year-old self, I would ask myself much broader questions. What are you good at? What do you enjoy? How do you want to spend the next 40 years of your working life? Do you want to sit behind a desk? Do you want to work with people? Do you want to work with your hands? Do you want to eventually run your own business? What sort of lifestyle do you want from the wages that you earn? Then start looking at the route to get there. There's actually a statistic from UCAS that I think sums things up really well. Their research found that 95% of students said employment prospects mattered when choosing a course, but only 36% had both a clear career vision and an idea of the pathway that needed to get there. So think about that for a second. Loads of us care about getting a good job, but far fewer of us actually know what the job is or how the degree we're choosing gets us there. This links onto something my friend Marie posted on Instagram the other day, something called Strive, which offers boutique college counselling and helps students through university application processes. And the words were, your university journey shouldn't start with the name of a brand, it should start with you. And that is such an important point. It is incredibly easy to become obsessed with the names. Is it a Russell Group university? Is it an Ivy League uni? Is it within the top 10 or the top 20? Is it a university that mum or dad have heard of? Is it the university your friends think sound impressive? Yes, what you study can definitely matter. And in some industries and some careers, it can matter quite a lot. But I would look far deeper than the logo. What is actually on the course? What opportunities are there for placements? Can you study abroad for a semester, a year? Which companies recruit from there? What do graduates from that particular course go on to do? What do they earn? Does the course have accreditation for your future profession? Don't just research where you want to study. Research where the course can actually take you. And then we come to the question students are quite rightly asking, is that degree actually going to guarantee me a job? And it's not. The latest UK graduate outcomes data found that around 15 months after graduating, 81% of respondents were in some sort of employment or unpaid work, but only 57% of them were in full-time employment. And that doesn't mean university is not valuable, because across the wider working age population, graduates continue to have strong employment outcomes. But the degree itself is only one part of what you bring to the job. Your experience matters, so communication, work ethic, internship, part-time work that you've done previously, those things actually that you did in those 3 or 4 years make such a big difference. And I don't like the simplistic version of university that says, get a degree, get a graduate job, earn loads of money, life sorted. It's definitely not how it works. Because if you're going to university, use the opportunity properly. Get experience, look at internships, join societies, use the career service, go to employer events, build contacts, take opportunities. And if your course and visa allow it, try and get a part-time job. And I don't mean work so many hours that your degree becomes an afterthought, but a part-time job that gives you more than money. You learn to deal with customers, you manage your time, you work with people you might not naturally choose to work with. So you deal with problems, you can get references from there, and you can start building examples that you can give in interviews. Your degree tells an employer what you studied, but your experience starts showing them what you can actually do and offer. But for students in the Middle East considering studying abroad, there's another huge part of this decision, and that is cost. Because moving overseas for university can be an incredible opportunity, but please calculate the whole cost, not just the tuition fees, because tuition is only one number. You've got obviously accommodation, food, transport, flights home in the summer holidays, Christmas holidays potentially, insurance, visas, phone bills, books, social life, and all the little random costs that appear when you're living independently. If you're looking at the UK, London is going to look very different financially from another part of the country like Newcastle. The same applies to the United States. New York's going to be completely different from a smaller college town. Canada and Australia, they've got their own costs and own financial requirements to get there. So make a spreadsheet, year 1, year 2, year 3, maybe even a year 4. What's your total cost? Not what we can afford in September when we're paying that fee bill. What's the approximate total cost of the whole degree? Because the university does not become affordable because you can afford the first year. And I also think we need to stop pretending that moving away from home is automatically a better university experience. I think halls are fantastic. You get to meet great people, you become independent, you're right in the middle of university life. I love that experience. If you've got a good university within commuting distance and home environment where you can actually study, living at home could save you a huge amount of money. There's no prize at graduation for having paid the most rent. But for students in places such as Dubai, Abu Dhabi or Doha, there's increasing numbers of local higher education options that are performing well. So compare them properly. What happens financially if you live at home for another 3 years? How much money could you save? Could some of that money help towards postgraduate study if you needed it? Could it go towards moving out and getting your first home? Could you use some of it and save it for investment? Could it help you start a business? Could it stop you beginning adult life carrying unnecessary debt? And could you still join the societies, play sport, go to the events and have that university experience? Because if you can, don't dismiss staying at home simply because you think moving away to university is all about. Because now we get onto money, and this is the part where Mike's School Mistakes earns the name, let's say. So because I did not arrive at university with a particularly healthy understanding of money, and some of that came from home, my parents had very different attitudes towards money. And during the separation, like happens in many families, there'll be two people talking about the faults and facts that they saw in each person. And it's a very human thing to do. But as a young person, you do absorb some of it. So I ended up living with my dad, and his attitude towards money was much more about spending what was in front of you. If money was there, it was there to be spent. And sometimes, even if the money was not really there because it was borrowed, you could still spend it, and that's fine. That shaped the way I looked at money far more than I understood at the time. I'm not saying that to blame anyone. I was 18 and I could make my own decisions, but financial habits don't appear from nowhere. There's an episode on a great podcast called Damien Talks Money where they say that financial habits are formed as young as 8. So if you think about that for a minute, like what your parents were doing when you were 8 years old, that potentially formed part of your money habits now. So we do learn them. We learn from parents, friends, advertising, social media, people around us. When I arrived at university, I took some pretty poor financial habits with me. Then I was suddenly given access to borrowing because I started university in September 2008 and somehow managed to open those 6 bank accounts up. 6 overdrafts, 6 credit cards, and at 18, an overdraft did not feel like a debt. That was the biggest mistake that I probably made. Because if I logged onto my bank and I saw that £800 available, 18-year-old me effectively thought, excellent, I've got £800. I didn't. I had the ability to borrow another £800. And that's completely different. And if you combine that with credit cards, student finance, income from work, and whatever else is coming into the account, it becomes surprisingly easy to lose track of your actual financial position. This is why I think one of the most important things students can do is work out what's actually your money. If your bank account says you've got £500 available, but you're already £1,000 into an overdraft, you don't have £500, you owe £1,000, and you've got the ability to borrow another 500. And that's a completely different way of looking at the same banking app. The same goes for credit cards. If you've got £600 in your current account and £1,500 available in your credit card, don't mentally separate those things because one number makes you feel a bit better. Look at the whole position. How much money do I actually have? How much do I owe? What is the interest I'm paying on it? When does the interest start? And why am I borrowing it? That last question really, really matters. Borrowing because you have a short-term cash flow issue that you have to plan to repay is one thing. But borrowing every month because the lifestyle you're living costs more than the money coming in is something completely different. And modern borrowing does not always feel like that. A credit card looks like a card, an overdraft looks like your bank balance. Klarna is a click button at a checkout. 3 payments of £40 somehow feels way cheaper than £120, but it's still £120. It's still the same thing at the end of the day. If you're using borrowing for rent, food, and basic everyday spending every single month, that should be a warning sign to you. And credit cards need to be treated with respect. Do you really need one? Is the first question you ask. Because before putting something on a card, ask yourself whether you can repay the statement. If you can, understand what the interest rate's going to do to the cost of whatever you're buying. Don't become obsessed with the monthly minimum repayment. That's the easiest way to convince yourself that debt is affordable. Okay, it's only £40 a month. Yeah, okay. But for how many months is it going to be £40 a month? How much interest is there on it? What's the actual total cost of the debt? These are the questions I didn't ask enough or know to ask when I was younger. And there's another mistake that students make when university finishes. And I think it's really important because your student bank account doesn't stay as a student account forever. You're not on that 0% interest all the time. Because at some point after you graduate, you switch over to a graduate account and your interest-free overdraft allowance can start to reduce. So instead of it being interest-free over £3,000, it might be interest-free on 2.5. And eventually you start paying interest on all of it. So when you graduate, don't just throw your cap in there and ignore the bank account. Check it in advance. What account are you going to be moved on to by the bank? Do you need to move over to a new bank? Don't be loyal. How much your overdraft remains interest-free? When does that reduce? What happens after that? What rate are you going to be paying? And what's your plan for clearing it? Because do you want to be going into a job carrying that debt? The same goes for any credit card balances. Know what the APR is, know the balance, know what you're actually going to be paying every single month. And don't assume that making the minimum payment means everything's fine. And while you're thinking about graduation, please do not wait until graduation day to start thinking about a graduate job. For many major graduate programs, application programs open around September or October for roles the following year. And competition can be serious. The Institute of Student Employers has reported that its members receiving around 140 applications for every single graduate vacancy they post. So if you're starting your final year and thinking you've got loads of time, start looking now. Use the careers service, research employers, look at internships, look at placement years, and find out what companies run graduate programs, find out what qualifications they want and look at the application process. Online tests, video interviews, assessment centres, final interviews can all be part of the process. And don't just apply randomly because the word graduate appears in the job title. Go back to those questions from earlier. What do you enjoy? What are you good at? What sort of work interests you and what matters to you? Is it money, security, location, ability to travel, progression in your career, helping people, working outside, eventually running your own business? There's no correct answer to any of those questions. It's about you, but there should be some thought behind it. And that's probably where I want to finish because I want you to enjoy university. And I seriously mean that. Make friends, go out, join clubs, play sport, travel if you can. Do things that have absolutely nothing to do with your CV because some of my best memories were made at university. I would never want someone watching this to become so obsessed with money and careers that they forgot to enjoy being young, but enjoy it with your eyes open. You don't need your entire life planned out at 16. You don't need the perfect career figured out at 18. University is not the be all and end all. And getting into a particular university doesn't define you, and not getting into one certainly doesn't define you either. Having a degree does not automatically create a career for you, but if I could go back knowing what I know now, as I said earlier, I'd look to go down that trade route. And that doesn't make the route I took wrong in the end, because as I said, I'm incredibly privileged to have that education that I had, but it just means that 18-year-old me didn't properly understand all the choices that were available to me. Financially, I would not have been in the position that I was in. I think I would have understood much earlier the way that I thought about money and been shaped by the environment that I grew up in. And I would have treated debt very differently, especially with my mum looking over my shoulder, not my dad. I would have looked at the whole cost of university, maybe used the opportunities that were available to me better. And I would have started thinking about what came afterwards much, much earlier. And that's the whole point of Mike's School of Mistakes. I don't want people to make the same mistakes that I made. I want to give people information and I want you to be able to understand your options. And most importantly, to enjoy yourself and then make the decision that best works for you. Again, thank you so much for watching along. I really, really appreciate your time. As I said before, I want this to be a collaborative space. There's things I've missed, there's things I've not covered. And if there's anything you want covered in the future, please let me know. Take it easy and have a good weekend.